Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of In the Prog Seat. It's Tuesday night. We're ready to talk some prog. It's album war time. Once again, it's been a few episodes. We're back. We've got 4 absolute classics. But before we start talking about that, let me introduce the crew. We got 2 folks that are a long ways away from home tonight.
And each other.
And colder. All the way from Iceland. Chad Hutchinson's here on vacation. What a trooper he is. He's still in Mexico. Louis Nasser is here. All the way from that strange place that is New York City. Chuck Alvarez is here. From an even stranger state of New Jersey, the professor is here, Ken Golden. And one of our 2 pillars of Chicago, George Lemie, is here as well. And I'm joining you from the Hudson Valley. So what's happening, everybody?
Good evening. Skål, everyone. Skål.
There you go.
Cheers.
So we've got an interesting battle tonight. We've got 4 classic albums. I would say none of these bands are in the kind of like the top tier of the big bands, but most of these all kind of sit just underneath there. And people are always asking, well, why did you pick these 4 albums? What ties them together? Well, this album is tied together by water themed. Steve Hillage, Fish Rising, Nektar A Tab in the Ocean. Ocean by Eloy. And Giant Octopus. So we got a fish, we got an octopus, we got an ocean, and then the tab in the ocean. So we got Great Britain represented here. We've got Germany here. British by way of Germany there. And Mr. Hillage. Is he British too? He's British,
yes.
Right? Yeah. Formerly of Gong, although at the time of this release, still kind of in Gong, does the solo album, brings most of Gong with him to do that album. So as we do on all these, we're all going to rank them in our order of preference. I'm going to keep score. I'm going to keep a tab on the albums, and then in the end, we'll count up all the votes, and we'll see which one reigns supreme here. We're going to go to Iceland first. Chad's going to kick us off with his 4, 3, 2, and 1.
All right. My track listing detail is not going to be as good because I don't have things in front of me. But let's start off with number 4. Number 4 for me is going to be Nektar. It's going to be Tab in the Ocean. They're a band that I like. I don't love. Sorry, Mo. I do love Mo. He was one of my favorites of the band to deal with. But Tab in the Ocean it's a very good album. But I've always felt that they're a rock band that does some progressive stuff, besides being, in other words, and not as being such a full-fledged prog rock band, if that makes any sense. And I'm not talking quite as far as like a Blue Oyster Cult, who's rock but does some weird stuff. But the Tab in the Ocean, for me, leans a little more rock than prog. The title track is good. I feel it's a little more simplistic than some of the other stuff on the album, though it's an epic, which is a little odd. I would probably say my favorite on there is King of Twilight. And that has lots of changes and all that, but it feels like a little bit more of a rock song. So that's my number 4. Number 3 would be Steve Hillage, Fish Rising. I think there's a little more going on here. I like the spaciness of it. I like his playing. Yeah, his singing's okay. I'm sure Eric would love it. The last 2 tracks, I think, Ken, you mentioned the other day, Salmon Song's great. Remind me the name of the song after that starts with an A.
Afterglow.
Yes, that's another great one. I like that album a lot. There's a lot of things that lean towards the future of things of space rock, like an Ozric Tentacles. I like the vibe of that album better than I like the vibe of, say, the Nektar album. So that would be my number 3. My number 2 is Eloy's Ocean. It's not my favorite Eloy album, but I like it a lot. I feel the first track on it, even though it's good, maybe for me is the weakest of the tracks. Some of the lyrics are a little clunky, but I do like the album a lot. Personally, I think Ocean 2 is a phenomenal album. I think that album's great. I would say Ocean 2 and Planets are probably my favorite 2, with several of their albums right behind them. Silent Cries and Ocean. Time to Turn. But yeah, so I would put Eloy Ocean number 2. Oh, amazing album cover, by the way. Just phenomenal album cover, especially the gatefold when you hold it vertically.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 1 was an easy shoe-in for me, and that's Gentle Giant's Octopus. It's a classic. It's just top to bottom a fantastic album. Yeah, there we go. There's not a song on Gentle Giant's Octopus that doesn't just wow me from beginning to end. The 5/1 version's great. That you have there. You got the Roger Dean cover. You got the other cover. The intricacy, the vocals. I feel it, and it's rocky. It's one of the heavier rocky albums that Gentle Giant put out. I think it was probably the first one I bought, so it has a soft spot. I take that back. It's not. It's my second one I bought. I bought Freehand first, but Octopus really grabbed me, and I've loved it ever since. And when you put these 4 out, that was easily my number 1 is Octopus.
Cool. All right. Octopus takes the early lead. Lewis, where do you sit? We're going to go to Mexico now. Lewis, where do you sit?
All right. So for me, my number 4 is going to be Eloy. For me, Eloy is a band that I've always struggled with for 2 main reasons. Number 1, I hate the overt Pink Floyd ripoff vibes. And number 2, I really can't stand the singing or the lyrics. I can't do it.
What you don't like Daughter of Earth.
I think not. And I do agree that it makes for an amazing poster, the cover. But it's an album that I own that I hadn't played until just recently. Actually, I didn't even play because I'm not there, but I re-listened to it because we were doing this, and nothing has changed. So that was an easy number 4 for me. Number 2 and 3, I went back and forth. I think I'm going to give the number 3 to Nektar. Nektar is a band that I never even heard of, and the first time I ever heard them was live at Nearfest. And I remember being surprised by the appearance of a bunch of people at Nearfest who were apparently only there for Nektar.
Yes, in their T-shirts.
They all looked like it was a.
That was a pretty rowdy Saturday night, if I remember correctly.
It was. The Nektar fan club was there in Spain.
And there was that super hot chick that was interviewing people, and all these guys were having mental breakdowns because they had never stood that close to a woman that was that good looking.
A woman, period.
So it was odd. And I would agree that Nektar is a more of a hard rock band with a little bit of prog elements. It's a great record, but it's not a band that I love, not a band that I hate. I just I like the lyrics of that album quite a bit. I think they're good. It's a good record, but compared to the other 2, that's my number 3. My number 2 is going to go to Hillage Fish Rising. The only bad thing about that record for me, and this is going to piss off some people, but I'm just going to take a page out of George's MO. Let's face it, Hillage to some may be some kind of guitar guru. He noodles too much. A lot of his fucking solos is like, man, do you even know what key you're in? What the fuck? Seriously. So I'm not wowed by it, but I do recognize that when it works, it really works. And it's like I think of it in the Gong universe, kind of the way I think of Voyage of the Acolyte in the Genesis universe. It's kind of like a Gong album that's not really a Gong album, but I don't know. It's a strange record. It has brilliance, and it has moments of pure cringe. But the good stuff is really good, so I give it the number 2. And the number 1 was trivial. It has to be Gentle Giant. I love every song on that record. I love the artwork. I think I actually have that artwork, lithograph, obviously, not the original. I bought one, and Roger Dean signed it for me at Nearfest. So all of the above. It's a great record. Think of Me with Kindness is just such a great tune, and I don't know. It's the advent of Panurge. Everything is great. So I just love that record. That's an easy shoe in for number one.
Cool. All right. Gentle Giant stays in the lead. Chuck, you going to change all that?
Let's see.
Let's see.
My number 4 is Eloy. What's that? All 4 of these albums I think are all brilliant. What's that? Don't have many complaints about any of them. What's that? But the Eloy thing, and so at times, and so it seems a bit neo-proggish to me, and so I really hate using that terminology. But wow, geez, I'm sorry I didn't have to mention neo-prog, man. But I still think that the Eloy Ocean is still a fine album. It's one of their better albums. That's my number 4. Oddly, my number 3 is Fish Rising. It has that gong feel to it, a bit more serious, but it's like what Lewis said, it's a bit of a canoodling going on over there, and so at times, but it's still a strong album. I think that that the songs are very well sung, very well written. Singing could be off and on there, and so, but it's still an excellent album. That's my number 3, Fish Rising. My number 2 is A Tab in the Ocean. It's always been one of my favorite Nektar albums. I consider them more like a psychedelic band, a rocking psychedelic band. The title track is killer, in my opinion. And I also loved King of Twilight. That was covered by Iron Maiden a couple of times, as a matter of fact. And just like everybody else, Octopus. Not a single weak track on that album. And you do know that album is not even 35 minutes?
No.
Right. Not even 35 minutes.
Hey, Tab in the Ocean's short too.
Yeah, in 37 minutes. Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe that's the proper length for an album.
But they say so much with their songs. You would think
that's
that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's more information in those 35 minutes than in 80 minutes of a lot of bloated recent LPs and CDs.
So, I was going to say my turn, but since you bring it up now, if you go and, because I was re-listening to Octopus today again, I've heard it a million times, but go and listen to it, and then while you're doing that, look at how long the tracks are. I'm telling you, I always thought that Advent of Panurge and Knots and even River were way longer than they are. None of them is over 5 minutes long.
Nope.
Is River the longest on the album though?
No.
No.
No. The longest song is Knots, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. All right.
But that's the thing. The statistical density is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm going to look up the actual while we're still talking about it, because I want to give everybody perspective on this, because it's just amazing. You guys said it. I mean, they say so much in such a short amount of time. All their tracks feel like so epic, and they're really not.
Actually,
all right. So Advent of Panurge, 441. Raconteur Troubadour, 401. A Cry for Everyone, 404. Knots, 411. Boys in the Band, 434. Dog's Life, 311. Think of Me with Kindness, 334. And River, 553.
Yep.
Wow.
I apologize. Mm-hmm.
So do you remember, Chad, when they did when
was I right?
Yes, you were. Mm-hmm.
Think of Me with Kindness in Montreal?
Oh, that was a phenomenal show.
Holy shit.
So good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know they played Nearfest as well, but that show in Montreal was outstanding.
That was the one. Yeah.
Well, they had Kerry. We didn't have Kerry, I don't think. No, we did not.
Is that Three Friends you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw them at BB King's in New York City. They were amazing.
Oh, missed that. I wasn't even in the city.
Oh, you weren't around for that? Oh,
no, I wasn't even in the city that day. No, so disappointed.
I saw that and like Uriah Heep like a day or two later. I like went back and forth into the city like 2-3 days in a row.
Oh,
it was great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Gentle Giant jumps in a commanding 3-point lead here. Ken,
he's going to ruin it. He's going to ruin it.
Look at it. Ruin it for everybody. So
Ken Ken's going to pick 4 other albums that have to do with the ocean.
Well, yeah, I got Focus Moving Waves. I got Tales from Topographic Oceans.
Oh no, not that.
So for me, these are 4 phenomenal albums.
Yep.
I love all of these albums. It's 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D. There's no losers here. All winners, and I think all important. If you're a prog rock fan, if you're getting into prog rock, all 4 of these albums should be in your collection.
Yep.
Agreed.
In my opinion.
I agree.
My number 4, I love it. I'm crazy about it. But I have to pick a number 4. So my number 4 is actually going to be Fish Rising. So it's basically a gong album with Dave Stewart, and Dave Stewart's playing on here is pretty great.
Oh yeah.
It's just the production. It's a little underproduced, but it's got some of Steve's great songs. I love Salmon Song.
Mm-hmm.
Soul and Music Suite is great, but it kind of meanders a bit.
Afterwood.
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid album. Is it, of the 4, is it as essential as the other 3?
I would say
Not
yes.
for me.
I would say
Because-
yes.
But it's a great record. I mean,
Would you say it's the
Hmm?
if you had to go by obscurity, would you say that's the most obscure of the 4? I would lean to say yes to that.
yeah, I'd say that's true. That's probably
Yeah.
true.
Even
So-
more so than Oceans? Than Ocean?
Yeah, yeah.
Ocean
would.
didn't get released here, but in the grand context of things, in
Yeah.
Europe, well, at least certainly in Germany, Eloy was a much bigger band, and much bigger than Steve Hillage. So it's a lot more records.
See, I would think like Gong is a much bigger band than Eloy, and most Gong fans obviously are all into that Hillage album. I don't know. It's a tough question.
Yeah.
It's a great record. My number 3 is Nektar, Tab in the Ocean. Again, this has some of their signature pieces. I mean, I love the long title piece,
Mm-hmm.
and King of Twilight, of course, is killed. But even like Desolation Valley,
Love that song.
yeah, I mean, Crying in the Dark. There isn't a weak song on this record. But this is, and I love the Helmet Wentz cover.
Yeah,
It's a great cover.
But the thing is with the album, their first album, Journey to the Center of the Eye, was definitely more of like a psychedelic album.
Very psychedelic. Mhm.
Yeah, and here they got more focused, more progressive, I guess, less, and definitely like
They rocked.
rock, like a British hard rock influence. I wouldn't. Well, I guess Wishbone Ash would be a bad comparison, but broadly speaking, comparing them to Wishbone Ash in the sense that Wishbone Ash was a hard rock band that had a strong progressive element. I think Nektar at this stage was a progressive band with a hard rock element. So if that makes any sense, I mean,
I think Luis and I feel it's the other way around.
Yeah.
yeah, but you're both wrong. So
Of course we are.
I mean, you two noobs are wrong. So I mean, they went on. I think went on to do bigger and better things and more progressive, more
That
conceptual.
I would agree with that.
I would argue that all of their 70s albums, each one is radically different from the one that came before it.
Yes,
Mhm.
I agree.
Sure.
The first album, like you said, is a purely psychedelic album. This is like a hard rock album with a lot of prog tendencies. Their third album has been pretty much a hard rock album. Their fourth album is a total prog album.
Mhm.
And then the album after that is a prog album, but with other things going
Concept.
on. And then Recycled is even different than the one before that. I mean, they're all so different from each other. They never made the same album twice.
The weakest one for me was Down to Earth.
I
I
love
mean,
that album.
I mean, that's a good album, but it's kind of weird. It's got Bob Calvert on it, and it's just a little.
Yeah, I like Recycled and I like Remember the Future for sure.
Remember the Future. Remember the Future is the masterpiece.
What about Sound Like This? Mhm.
No,
I like that album. That's a good heavy
That
album.
rocks.
no
Mhm.
problem with.
Mhm.
It's great. Sounds like this is great, and I love Recycled. I mean, that was their most polished,
Yep.
and had Larry Fast on it.
Right.
I was a big Nektar fan, so that was my number 3. So I'll upset the apple cart just because I
Just
feel
because.
like it.
Yeah,
I'll
here
go
we
with
go.
Hell's Giant Octopus.
Yeah, we knew it.
Yeah, I want to be the outlier tonight.
You're always the outlier.
It's one of my favorite Gentle Giant albums, but it's probably not my favorite. But it's fantastic. I love Knots. I love the production on this album. The sound quality is phenomenal. Rockin' to a Troubadour. It's great. We talked about this album at length, and when we were talking about Gentle Giant. But the thing is, when I go through the 4 albums, which is the one that I would go to the most often? And for me, it's Eloy. I mean, I don't have to listen to any of these albums. I know all these albums. They're in my DNA, But for the hell of it, just to come with a ranking, I went through listening to them again.
Wait, did you just say a German band's in your DNA?
Yeah, I know. Well,
okay. Just put that out there.
I put this on. I jizz every time I hear this album.
Nice.
The jizz in the ocean.
I see the Eloy guys recoiling in terror at that video.
Probably Frank will hear that and he'll go run for cover. But
literally,
just musically speaking, yeah, Frank's vocals are Frank's vocals. Not quite as bad as later on, but I mean, he's not. His pronunciation is not so great. The lyrics not so great, but conceptually, the whole thing, it just does it for me. Every time I hear this album, there's not a weak moment on this record. It sucks me in. And what's even better is when you hear all these versions on Eloy Live, which is a motherfucker of an album. That is one of the greatest.
The live versions are better.
Yep. It's indisputable. It's law. And as great as this is, it's even better on the live album. Just as I said, I could have turned this around and just gone with the crowd and said Gentle Giant was the obvious number 1, but I don't think it's so obvious. As great as it is, for me personally, Eloy does it for me.
Always got to go with that, right? Got to go.
Yeah, all 4 great records.
Well, all 4 are great. Still love them.
They really are.
Yep.
Let's see if George jizzes over Eloy as well.
I think George, can we skip you?
That's good. I'm the opposite of Ken. It's not only is it not in my DNA, I've scarcely heard these records actually. Nektar, I never heard until prep for the Fall Fest. Since we were going to see him, one spin, and frankly, I forgot anything that I heard. So that's my number 4. I couldn't remember anything from it, and now I know why. I think it's pretty pedestrian. I agree, it's more rock than prog, but that's not what it's about. I don't know. I don't care for the Vokes at all. Hate to sound like Eric, but generally the whole album just doesn't appeal to me on any level. My number 3 is the Eloy. The opener is pretty good. I enjoyed this drummer. Does he have a rep? Because he's got some cool tom fills.
Yep.
I believe he played with the Scorpions very early on. Also,
who is it? Fritz Randall?
Jürgen
Rosenthal. When he is it Rosenthal on here?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and you hear him on the live album. Unbelievable. He's a monster, absolute monster.
And he wrote this whole album.
Right.
Rosenthal did?
Yeah.
Look at that. Ken just learned something.
Yeah, he's good. The vocalist takes a good bit of heat, but I think he's okay on this first track. Unfortunately, not so much on the next couple. And the closing epic, does that take a long time to get going? There's nothing happening for like 8 minutes.
Yes.
And the end is, it's not a whole lot better. That tune's a complete snoozer for me. In general, the album's too spacey for me, but if someone likes space rock, I think it's a good mix of space rock and prog rock. It's just not up my alley. My number 2 is the Hillage. This is pretty good. It's got some moments anyway. The long opening suite, I would say, is the highlight of the record. The vocals are more tolerable in that tune. He sounds okay in that tune, and the jamming section is actually pretty damn good. The guy doing the synth leads, is that Tim Blake? That guy rips. some good trade-offs with Hillage in that song. And Hillage can cut a little bit too. He's not like a major player, but he gets around. He's not too bad. Unfortunately, I can take or leave the rest of the record. The short songs, they don't really go anywhere. Oh, I like the Salmon song too. That riff is entrancing. It's just there's a vibe to it. It just gets in your head. But the short songs and Afterglade do nothing for me. So it was going to be number 2 anyway, because Gentle Giant to me is another step above these albums. We've talked it to death, of course, but it's got everything. It's got the great opener. It's got actually a good softie. It's got a great instrumental. I don't know what you want from it. It's just a really good record. So that was definitely my number 1.
All right. So I like all 4 of these a lot. I would say pretty much love most of these. Yeah, I do. But to me, this was fairly easy to do because I think there's like a little bit that separates each one of them for me. Number 4, I'm going to go with the Eloy.
Yeah, man.
I like it a lot. I mean, it's not my favorite Eloy, though.
It's not mine either, by the way.
Yeah. Here's my issue with Ocean. It tends to, for me, there's moments of greatness on here, but I think most of the tracks kind of drift and meander a little bit. Whereas I find like Silent Cries and Mighty Echoes is my favorite Eloy album. Yeah. I don't get that with that album. I find that's a little bit more approachable. And maybe there's more guitar solos on that one, I think. I don't know. There's lots of reasons why I generally pick that one over this one. But I think this one, it's very adventurous from a songwriting perspective. The keyboard playing is amazing on this album. Yep. I mean, I think that really, really drives it for me. Frank's vocals, I don't dislike them, but it's not their strong point. I find it interesting that in all these years with Eloy that they never decided to get like an actual singer, right? Not that his vocals are bad, but they're just, you know what it is. He's got that accent, and it's like they're not that approachable, I think.
Actually, Pete, man, you know who Eloy reminds me of most of the time, and so they remind me a lot of Campbell. In which
musically speaking.
And also like vocal wise and so is that you wish that they had like stronger singers, and that's one thing that both bands didn't have were strong lead vocalists. That's what I always felt about them. But I still love that Eloy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think with Eloy, after Is It Time to Turn, that Jurgens left, and then Frank took over the vocals, and he was sort of pretty much the leader at that point. So if the leader's singing, what are you going to do?
Hey.
But I mean, it's a really great album. I mean, I really like it a lot. I think as far as like this mix of like space rock and this Pink Floyd thing going on and this symphonic rock and great guitars, and I mean, like I said, the keyboards and the synths on this album are amazing, and I think it's really adventurous. I think besides Creation is terrific. I don't dislike anything on here, and I love the production of the album. And the artwork is absolutely killer.
Yep.
It's just something's got to come in at number 4, and that I think just by a little bit is my number 4. My number 3, I'm going to go with Fish Rising from Hillage. I mean, Solar Music Suite is amazing. Love it. It's just that's how you do spacey prog. Guitar solos are great. Synths are great. I mean, I would agree. I think Lewis mentioned that Hillage sometimes goes a little noodly at times. Yeah, he does. I don't really mind it. I don't listen to a ton of Steve Hillage, but the albums I like from him, I like mainly because of his guitar playing. Salmon Song is killer. Like George mentioned, that riff, that little lick that he does in there. You listen to that and you'll be hearing it in your head for the rest of the day.
Yep.
That's the way it goes. Afterglade is really good. Maybe a little bit too long. The shorter tracks, yeah, whatever. But I love his guitar tone. He's got that kind of liquidy, spacey guitar tone. I absolutely love it. And, when he rocks, he rocks. So there's really not much that separates these two. I've been fighting back and forth all week which one's going to take the number 4 or number 3 slot. But I really like them a lot. Really like them a lot. My number 2 is going to be A Tab in the Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. This is more of like a hard rock band trying to do prog stuff, but they do it so well. And I like this kind of Hammond organ hard rock stuff anyway, for everybody who knows me, right?
Chad, what happened? Oh,
Purple.
My arm
Uriah
got
Heep.
tired. Sorry.
It's moving all over the place there. It's got some great tracks on here. I mean, the title track is amazing. Desolation Valley is great. Crying in the Dark. King of Twilight is absolutely terrific. I love the big organs. I love Roy's guitar work. Love the artwork. I don't know. Is it my favorite Nektar? A lot of times it is. It's usually a toss-up between this and Remember the Future. I like them both.
Pete, I always thought that Roy was a great vocalist, actually.
I would agree with you. I like his voice a lot. I think he got better with time as well.
And an underrated guitarist.
100%. Yeah, I think he's a really good guitar player.
He likes his volume.
Oh, he does. He does. Yeah, they were loud that night. Yeah.
I heard him during sound check. He didn't like that we had a limit.
Oh, really?
Oh yes.
He
Well,
certainly is
because,
not
I
a
guess,
guitar player to me.
Well, we all know what happened live during sound check at SOT Fall Fest.
Yeah, I know, right? and he wasn't even alive for that.
Wait,
He wasn't
are we allowed to tell that story?
What's that?
Are we allowed to tell that story to the people?
I don't know.
It was one hell of a story, man.
It was one. Yeah. All right. So basically, for those who weren't there, I'm not going to go into real specifics or people's names and stuff. But early in the afternoon, Nektar were doing sound check in the Chance Theater, and don't know how it happened, but the PA got blown. And there was a big battle between the Nektar camp and the Chance staff about whose fault it was. But basically the story was we had no PA in the main hall, so we had to move to the smaller hall. And then because of the battle that was going on, Nektar did not play. So, yeah.
We were
all there. We were all helping moving things around. And I remember how loud it was in the main theater at the time.
They were loading in amps like they were going to be playing fucking Giant Stadium. It was pretty comical, I have to say. But anyway.
Didn't they have a merch table set up like while they were loading up the van to leave?
Yep.
And then that was the last thing to be removed, the merch.
Yeah. It was a very unfortunate thing that happened because I think a lot of people came to see them. I was totally excited to have them headline the whole thing, and they felt really bad. They're really nice guys, and they felt really bad about what happened. And again, it's not up to me to blame who did what and how it happened. It really doesn't matter all this time later. But it's just a shame that it happened because I think the day would have been better with them, But as it is, the show went to like midnight, right? So it's like I can only imagine how it would have been able to squeeze them in, right? Because but it was, yeah.
Well, Traver's band was like exceedingly loud.
Well, there's the crazy thing, right? So we had what happened during the day, right? We're like, oh, they were too loud for the Chance, but then Pat Travers comes on in the smaller venue upstairs, and that was like one of the loudest shows I've ever seen.
Well, because the guy had a double Marshall stack, and it was cracked.
Yeah,
like he was completely unaware of where the fuck he was playing.
I literally was sitting in the last row, and I was just overwhelmed.
We were in the dressing room, with a door closed, trying to talk. We had to shout.
That's right.
There are photographs that are circulating around all of us in the dressing room, and we're all like standing two inches.
The picture of Lewis and Chad in the background.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was someday. Let me tell you.
Oh.
All right. My number one, obviously, by process of elimination, is Giant Octopus. Fourth album, first with John Weathers. It's funny. I mean, I've heard this album so many times in my life, but every time I listen to the Advent and Penurge, I say to myself, is this the greatest Gentle Giant song ever? Oh. Might be my favorite. and it's not even 5 minutes long, and it feels like it's a big epic, and it's just like it just goes by so quick. It's just like so good. I mean, the keys and the guitar are so good. Raconteur Troubadour, it's got this kind of haunting quality, but it's really catchy. There's so much variety on this album. A Cry for Everyone just rocks.
Oh, yeah.
Knots is just ridiculously complex, but even the music is complex, but the vocals
Even more so.
oh yeah, right, just absolutely crazy. Boys and again, Knots is another one. You think that's like 8-9 minutes long. It's like it's barely over 4 minutes. Just crazy how much they package such a short time. The Boys in the Band.
You mentioned the word epic. Gentle Giant's a band that's never had an epic.
They don't have one song over 10 minutes long.
Nope.
Well, if you define epic as in terms of time, yeah. If you define epic
Yes.
in terms of content,
Yeah, I'm talking to the typical prog epic, the 10, 15 minute thing.
Because
They don't have it.
Spock's Beard milked like 3 or 4 songs from Knots in the Thoughts, right?
Yep.
Oh yes, and
So
thoughts.
there
too.
you go, and I can point to different people and say, okay, where have I heard that before? I know. Where did that come from? We all heard it, So yeah, even Kevin Gilbert, the Suite of the A&R Men, that is
absolutely,
and it's an homage to Gentle Giant because he was a fan,
100%.
So yeah.
Dog's Life is just beautiful. Think of Me with Kindness. I mean, I know we talked about this album so much over the years here on the show, but Kerry Minier is kind of like the secret weapon of this band.
Yes.
Not only a great keyboard player who could play everything, but a really good songwriter, and I always liked his voice.
But he never liked singing live, which really saddened me.
Yeah.
Well, he liked it that night in Montreal, man.
Oh,
The dude was reduced to tears,
Nice, man.
And at the after party, I'll never forget that as long as I live. Talking to that guy, amazing, So
I have a picture somewhere of him, Malcolm, and Gary Green leaving the hotel, walking down the sidewalk in Montreal, the back of them, and it says basically it screams 3 friends.
There they go.
It's just really cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
And speaking of Gary, how about that guitar solo in River, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Underrated player. He's like his kind of like bluesy style, I think, just really fit well in this band in a big way. And whenever he like exploded for a great solo, it's just like so. Yeah, I mean, to me, this is a perfect album. I don't often pick this as my number one favorite Gentle Giant album, though. I don't know why, because every time I like really listen to it for like for an exercise like this, and I go through it, I'm like, there's not a bad song on here. In fact, every song is like a home run for a different reason. I'm like, why is this not my favorite Gentle Giant album?
It's my number 2.
Chuck, it's always in my top 3,
Yep.
but I very rarely pick it as my number 1 because I always find an excuse to pick 3 Friends or In a Glass House or Freehand, right? I always
Power in the Glory.
or that, right? And I don't know. It's interesting because I was reading a quote. I forget which guy in the band was talking about it today, and he was saying how this is probably their best album ever. Well, next to Acquiring the Taste, that is. Acquiring the Taste, huh? Wow, that's pretty bold to say that. So
that was a very progressive album. Of all the
albums,
that's the most progressive.
Yeah, I tell people all the time. It's like, well, if I'm going to recommend you 3 Gentle Giant albums to listen to first, I will never give you Acquiring the Taste, because you have to acquire the taste for this band first before you go to that album, because it's a weird album. It's a great album, but that's not a newbie album.
I'm going to put it differently. Gentle Giant is so prog that most prog fans can't handle it. And that's because most prog fans are very confused. So when you actually prog out, they freak out. That's the thing with Gentle Giant. They're too prog for the prog heads.
I mean, I see comments all the time here on the channel from people saying, I've been trying to get into Gentle Giant for 20 years and I have most of their albums. I just still can't do it. Can you say you get it? I mean, they're not an easy listen right off the bat.
Oh,
for me, one of the best lucky blows that I had in my life was that fucking bootleg that I got that had In a Glass House in it. Because if you start listening to that when you're a kid, it changes everything. It actually changes your expectation of what you're going to hear and what you want to hear. It's awesome. I love those records, all of them. There's the one that we will not speak of, but all the other ones are great. And I'm sorry if Gary is watching, but this motherfucker, that album is hard. And, but everything else is just so good. The only reason I have a favorite is because that was my first. It's for sentimental reasons only. It has nothing to do with actual musicianship, or it just that was a point of entry in a glass house.
Yeah, Three Friends was it for me. So I generally always kind of lean to that one a little bit, but it's changed. I went for a couple of years where In a Glass House was my favorite, but I always keep going back to Three Friends, and Freehand is always kind of sitting there like barking at me. It's like, pick me, pick me, pick me. But Octopus is always in there. It's always right up there.
What does it say about a band that has so many albums that you can't pick your favorite consistently?
Exactly.
We did a whole episode on this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was very difficult. Very difficult.
Yeah, it's very hard.
So did Eloy win?
Unfortunately, our winner is Octopus. And I know there's going to be lots of people watching. They're going to be screaming, "Oh, you knew Gentle Giant was going to win this one." It's like, well,
No, not really.
Yeah, no shit. You're going to be fucking Eloy.
Hey, Ken, man.
Well,
I'm sorry,
because
but
Luis is here. Because Luis is here, we had to do it scientifically. So now it's been proven.
there it is. Without data, you're just another person with an opinion. There's the
There you
fucking
go. Just like
and,
an asshole.
and my Hebrew compadre is just another guy with an opinion.
Wow.
But the correct one. So,
No,
That's also an opinion.
I love that album. I just love that record.
No, it's a great album.
there's
I love
nothing
it.
not to love about. Yeah, I totally dig it as well.
I admit I'm not. My problem with Eloy is also really just how Pink Floyd they tried to be, and I don't think they need to.
Luis, I take issue with that because while the comparison is just, but it's not. It's really happened with Silent Cries. I didn't find Ocean or anything earlier, Dawn, any of those, Inside, Floating, they have nothing to do with Pink Floyd.
I think
Well,
the early
that's
albums
also why-
are definitely not Floydy at all.
Those
Yeah.
records you mentioned are less structured because they're not a ripoff of Wish You Were Here.
They're very symphonic. They're symphonic prog albums with, he started to get into the spacier stuff with Ocean, and it really hits home with Silent Cries. Silent Cries, that's like a Pink Floyd album that was, they wrote that with tracing paper, but it's great. I mean, it's a phenomenal album, and that kind of, and that became, if I'm not mistaken, so I think Silent Cries was their biggest selling album, and I think that kind of set the template. The band broke up, but then they had Colors, Time to Turn, and all that other stuff, which were great. Planets, all that stuff was great. But at that point, that's when they kind of went into Pink Floyd territory. It really started not so much with Ocean, maybe a little bit, but I hear this as a more. It has a spacey element, but I hear it as a more symphonic prog element.
Perhaps, but also if you're going to have these grandiose keyboards and all these things, and you're going to be sing in the right fucking key.
Who cares?
I fucking care because I'm not deaf.
I can't understand what he's singing anyway.
It doesn't matter, but it's even if you don't care about the lyrics, which you shouldn't when you listen to Eloy, you do want to hear a melody that is cogent with the chord changes.
So, by the way, I looked and it said that Rosenthal wrote the lyrics. The band wrote the music. So,
yeah.
But again,
I should clarify that.
If you really want to hear the Ocean, the material at its best, listen to Eloy live. And
Eloy was.
I agree with you completely, and in fact, live, I can let the vocals slide because it's fucking live.
George,
but in the studio,
George is a drummer. Try and listen to Eloy live because Rosenthal's playing on there. It's just phenomenal.
Cool.
It's a great live album.
No, it is.
It's one of those should have been a double.
Yep.
It was.
Yes.
Was it a double?
Yeah.
I've only ever had it on CD, so
I think it's double.
CD is kind of short.
I'll have to go look. I think it's double.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. There's your winner.
Ocean theme.
Down in the comments, I'm trying to fit it in here with this new configuration. Down in the comments, vote these in the order of your preference. All right, so we got all these water-themed octopus, fish rising, ocean, and tab in the ocean. And
Here's some water for you.
there's some water for you.
There's the ocean.
There's some water for you.
Focus on their moving waves is over there in the body of water behind the chat somewhere. And yes is lost in their topographic one somewhere way beyond. So who knows? Yeah, I thought about picking yes, but I'm like, God, we just talked about that not that long ago.
That would have been interesting, actually. Where would you rank Tales from Topographic Ocean within these four?
I think that everyone except for me probably would have had them in the bottom portion.
All right, don't go there. Just, you
No.
know,
In fact, I would rank it above the Eloy for sure.
Wow.
Oh, you would? Wow. Okay.
Wow. Oh, I'm shocked.
As pretentious and as bullshit and as much as they hate that record, it's a little better.
Oh, boy.
Uh-oh. Stirring the pot.
Sorry, Eloy fans. I'm in Mexico. Come at me.
You'll never be able to find them. So for everybody watching, we tried very hard for this episode, because we've done a lot of these album wars and we pick like these, very, very the top tier of the prog world. And we tried to go like to the next tier down. There's a lot of other bands that kind of sit in this level right here. So if you want to see more of these album wars with 4 other bands, let us know in the comments below. We're happy to do that. So there's tons of albums out there that we can kind of group together based on some sort of thing that's similar between them. So today, these all had some kind of water theme thing in the title. We can certainly go in another direction. Maybe we pick fire next time or something. I don't know. I'm just throwing things off the top of my head. So thanks for watching. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also down below, we get the links to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, our merch page, and our Cameo page. Thanks in advance for all your support there. We'll see you next time here on In the Prog Seat for Chad Hutchinson in Iceland, Louis Nasser in Mexico, Chuck in New York City, Ken in Jersey, George in Chicago. I'm Pete Pardo here from the Hudson Valley, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.